Hello and welcome to the first video I've made in a while, and this is the video I've threatened my Greek group with for quite a bit on Duff's Greek Grammar, Chapter 9. So I've got this right. I'm not wonderful with the computer. I've got a son who is, and I let him do all the complicated stuff. But I hope I've kind of got this to a place where I can see the Duff and also see myself. I find it difficult to make videos without being able to see my face, hideous though it is. And I thought it'd be useful, particularly in the light of where we've got to recently in our New Testament Greek group. If I just run through chapter 9, and I'm probably going to use this video just to go through some of the grammar and some of the vocab, perhaps get to the exercises at some future point. And I'm not going to cover everything. What I'm going to try to do is to point out the things that are really kind of important to know when you come to use the Greek New Testament. Because obviously, the more you try to learn, it's one thing, starting off with the beginning of Duff and learning luo, luais, luai, luomen, luete, luusin. And so I'm sure some of my group have forgotten that already. But that's okay. But the more of these verb forms you learn, and the more noun declensions you learn, you just find that your head is really trying to cope. You've got things like conjunctions and pronouns on top of that, and you can just feel you're drowning. So my own response to that is to sort of get to Duff around about chapter 8, and then to start using the Greek New Testament, and then to kind of learn as you go. So, for instance, we've been looking at the start of Mark's Gospel, where we came across the word eilthen, he went, and eiden, he saw. And these are very common words in the Greek New Testament, but eiden comes from the verb oreo, which you'd never guess. And eilthen comes from the verb ginomai, which you would never guess. It's simpler. As we learn English language in this way, we don't learn all the declensions, we just learn it by use. So it is with New Testament Greek. Once you've got a certain amount of grammar under your belt, which I would judge in terms of Duff is about chapter 8, in terms of Wenham, I used to think in terms of sort of chapter 13, 14, then you can start to use the Greek New Testament and learn stuff as you go and work out what's important and what isn't. So it is also useful, I think, to do chapters of Duff. And I'm just going to go through this. This is page, I think 100 is 116. I forget which way this works. I've got page 100 in brackets 116 of 356. Anyway, it's the start of chapter 9. And we will see how we get on. Yes, page 100. That's right. Okay, so chapter 9 begins with these two fairly common words, ekainos and hutos, which are quite handy because you can remember the English, it's this and that. It's better to learn it the other way around instead, hutos and ekainos, because then that's this and that, which is how we use that particular expression. And you'll see there under the formation, there's a couple of quotations from Matthew 21 and Matthew 14, which indicate one's a nominative use of hutos, nominative singular, and then a dative in masculine dative of ekainos. Leaving that aside, what you then have is a chart telling you all of the different forms of ekainos. But in reality, these just in general follow the masculine and feminine and neuter forms that you've already learned. So I would suggest that you don't spend a lot of time trying to learn the chart on page 100. Because if you succeed, all you're really doing is relearning noun declensions that you've already covered. So I would say don't bother. Okay, the neuter is ekaino, as opposed to ending in on, which you may remember. Neuter nouns you've learned so far. So far, it's not third declensions yet. Neuter nouns tend to end in on in nominative and accusative singular. The difference, I think the only difference here is the nominative and accusative singular, which end in oh. Well, if you just learn that something ending in oh is often a neuter form, then we will do okay. So what I'd just say is learn that ekainos is that. And hutos is this. So it says there, right, ekainos declines just like autos in chapter 3:6, except in the nominative use of neuter singular. So honestly, that's dead straightforward. Just learn that ekainos means that, and you'll be well away when you come to using the Greek New Testament. We actually had one in our reading from Mark chapter 1 today. So we came across a dative, which is very recognisable. So I'm not going to do all this stuff like parsing the forms here. What you have on page 101 is you have hutos. You'll notice the only difference here really is that once you get away from the nominative in the masculine and feminine, it sticks another to in front. So hutos goes to tuton, tutu, tuto. Sounds like something from a dance routine, doesn't it? And then in the nominative plural, hutoi, and then tutus. Tutus before, two-tone and two-toys, and so on. The feminine is the nominative singular and nominative plural don't have at all, and you'll notice there that in the genitive plural, all three genders, masculine, feminine, and neuter, in the genitive plural take the form two-tone. So you come across a two-tone. It's not talking about two different colours on the same car. Two-tone is the genitive plural, and it can be masculine, feminine, or neuter. But just learn that hutos is this, and it often appears with a tor. So outside of the nominative. You'll get to recognise these as you come to use them. And trying to learn a chart like this drive you nuts on top of everything you've already learned. Now, if you're one of those people that, I've come across people, most of them autistic, on at least somewhere on the autistic spectrum, who can just memorize pages and pages and pages of this stuff. If that's you, fantastic, well done. I can't. So just learn hutos or aute or tutor is this. And that the what you then do outside of the nominative is you stick a tor on the front. And trust me, as you come to use the New Testament increasingly, you'll just get to recognise. You'll just get to recognise it. So what does it say there? Hutos and ekainos can both be used either as a pronoun or as an adjective. Although it sounds complicated, exactly the same as in English. So there are examples. This is boring in terms of a pronoun, using this in terms of as a pronoun, and adjective. This book is boring. That's really straightforward. And as I said to you, we're at the stage now with my beginners group, and they're no longer beginners, where we're actually using the New Testament, and you just get to recognise them. Something there on page 102, their use as pronouns is straightforward. Um, so, yeah, you can use them in terms of, you see that the first example, ekainous, literally those, but where you have to supply the noun. I saw those people or whatever, and arxetai tauta, he will begin these things. A little bit there. You'll often find these demonstratives with the article, and so that looks awkward. In English, you have an example there, hutos choadelphos, which is this the brother. It's simply stylistic. You don't translate the article, and so it is this brother. You've got a note there on holos. I forget which way the breathing goes. Similar story. And you get used to holos. Whole sounds a bit like whole. So you got a bit of practice there. Translate things like hutos, hotopos. This is the place. This was the place. Necra, neuter, plural, dead. These are the dead sheep, I think. These sheep are dead. These sheep are dead, I think. Holos, oklos, ekuin. All of the crowd heard, were hearing. That's an imperfect. So I'm not going to go through these. It just gets a bit tedious. You certainly should have the idea by now. And I think Duff is really making this a little bit more complicated, probably, than it needs to be. We move on to do 9.2 and third-person pronouns. Common third-person pronoun autos we've already met. It can also be used as an adjective. Examples, lego aute, I'm speaking to her. Yes, I'm just sort of looking at adjective meaning same, normal attributed position between article and noun, emphatic adjective. Pronouns are often used as adjectives simply because in Greek you don't have to use a pronoun. Lego means I say. If you say ego lego, you are emphasizing that it's I am saying it. So you've got emphatic adjective. So I say I'm speaking to her, then hoi mathete autu elegon. The disciples of him were speaking, his disciples were speaking. Ha autos. And here's one that's sort of reflexive for emphasis. Ha autos kurios. The Lord himself, the same Lord, saves the people. The same Lord, forgive me. So when you've got the article followed by autos, it's the same Lord saves the people. When you've got autos in front of the article, it's a kind of reflexive thing for emphasis. The Lord himself saves the people. that's worth learning. It's worth bearing in mind. It's the kind of thing that is useful. I have to confess that I'd kind of forgotten that. So sometimes you have to keep stuff like this in the back of your mind and refer back to Duff. So if you've got a hard copy of Duff, sometimes it's good to go back and revise this thing. 922 is about heautos, third person reflexive pronoun, and that speaks for itself. Third person reflexive pronoun, himself, herself, third person anyway. And the two different uses in the examples, the Lord saves himself, and then the Lord himself, because the autos is at the start of the sentence for emphasis. And then you can tell whether himself is reflective or emphatic by deleting it. If the sentence's basic meaning is an alternate, it was emphatic. If not, it was reflexive. That's a very useful hint. So take out the word autos, and you'll see whether it's reflexive or emphatic. Not sure that altogether works there, but it's a useful hint anyway. So 923, alos and allelos, sorry, and these are other and another, and they decline like ekainos. You'll get used to these. They are words that you come across quite often. The Bible is full of commands to do things to one another, good things to one another, I should say, and allelos consequently is quite common. Allos, other, they obviously are linked, other and one another. And they decline in the same way, the sort of stuff that you've already done. So that's simple enough. Again, you'll get used to these with use. So don't worry too much about learning all of the different forms. You will get used to them. So halfway practice, which I'm not going to do because this is just a zip through, but I may do the exercises in chapter 9 later when I've got a bit more concentration about me and a bit more coffee. 9.3 moves on to first and second person pronouns and adjectives. What's worth learning here? To be honest, this is one of those things where I would suggest that you get a copy of this chart and you have it handy. Obviously, pronouns are very common in the New Testament. Some are more common than others. And the really common ones, the really common personal pronouns are the second person plural and third person plural, I think, in my experience. But certainly the plurals, actually first person as well. So the nominative plural, for instance, heimais, and the second person plural, chomais. The way I remember those is by doing an alphabetical thing. You see that they're identical apart from the first letter, which is eta as opposed to upsilon. And I think about first comes earlier in the alphabet, and the second person comes later in the alphabet. One or two folk were saying that it's still kind of trying to remember the order of the Greek letters. It does actually really help to learn the alphabet, much as it helps to know the English alphabet, so you can use a dictionary. It's worth kind of trying to cement the alphabet in your mind in terms of the word, or just go through it, alpha, beta, delta, epsilon, zeta, theta, and so on. It will stick. Going back to what I was saying, the common pronouns, in my experience of reading the New Testament, are heimais and heimo and chomais and chomo. came in and come in to some extent, plurals more than singulars. When you think about it, and a lot of the New Testament was written to churches with groups in mind, you'd expect the plurals to be more common. Of course, you've already done the third person, autos, and so on. Those are a lot more common in all forms, but they're also easier to learn. So just keep this chart handy. You'll see that the singular forms actually look a little bit like the declension of log on and so on, with the oo. I guess there's an oi. It's actually quite a lot different, isn't it? But you'll see there are similarities there with noun forms you've already learned. It's really best to learn these as you go, rather than trying to remember them, in my opinion. So there's a note there. A simple note is that pronouns are often used for emphasis because, as I've already said in Greek, there's no need to use a pronoun because the verb form determines which person it is who is doing the action or having the action done to them. So reflexive pronouns there, you've got page 105. Emautos, which you see is like a bit like eautos, but it's got a m in, the m for me, and seautos, because a lot of the second person pronouns begin with sigma. And ourselves, yourselves, plural of autos is simple enough. Bit on possessive adjectives. You've already pretty much covered that. The genitive form, of the personal pronoun. So you've already come across this. A noun followed by a mu or a su or a hamon or a homon or an autone or autu. So a noun with an adjective, with a possessive adjective, a possessive pronoun indicates possession. The genitive form of the pronoun with an adjective indicates possession, much as it does in English. Literally, you'll find things that say, "This is the book of me." We just translate my book. This is the table of him. And we would simulate his table. That's really is simple enough. You'll get used to this. It's very common use. The translation there is, you'll see this actually in practice on page 105, honomas su, his law, your law. The law of you saves, your law saves. Then hotheos sotse se, God saves you. I'm just trying to think any more possessives there. There's one. There's a sot there. That's a possessive. So you get the idea. I hope that's not confusing. It's made sense. If it hasn't made sense, rewind the video and work through my garbled explanation again. Conjunctions. Timid words. I like that. This is just worth noting. The number of conjunctions in Greek that can't stand first in a sentence. They just call them timid words for obvious reasons. Technical name for these post-positives, even more. I just call them words that never occur first in a sentence, and you've got the examples there: ara, gar, de, men, un, and te, and they're rough translations. So one of them throw you. You'll come across a sentence in your Greek New Testament, and you'll find the word gar, for instance, because or for second in the sentence, and you'll find this really odd. because you want to translate it at the beginning of the sentence. Well, you can in English. It is simply that it doesn't appear first in Greek. You've got there men and debt. I think, oh yes, 940, we come to men and debt, which is useful. Debt is a very common word, a bit like kai. I mean, it's but it can mean and. A lot of these conjunctions have broader meaning than you have here, just as kai does, and you just learn to use them a bit more flexibly. So there's a bit there. There's one, Mark 3:10, polus gar therapeusin, for many he healed. Literally, many for he healed. You simply have to learn that God doesn't come first in the sentence. Now, men and debt are worth knowing about because they are used quite common, and I think my impression is that Paul uses them quite a lot. Men is normally used preceding a debt. In this case, the contrast between two things is being stressed. And this is the way I see it. Where you get men and debt together in a sentence, men is on the one hand and debt is on the other hand. And that it's worth using that to start with as a way of translating them. And it sounds a bit clumsy and awkward, but it helps you to remember them. So if you see a sentence where you've got men and debt, it means this but that. Or on the one hand this, on the other hand that. And it's very common. You've got an example there from Romans 6, which is a very, very good example actually. Logit sesthi, consider yourselves, out of you've just done, to be, I and I, infinitive, necrus, followed by men, but men can't come before what it qualifies. On the one hand, dead to sin, but on the other hand, alive, zontas, which is a participle, to God. And 1 Corinthians 12, ekastos, I think you've done ekastos, each of you says, I, on the one hand, am of Paul, I'm Paul's. I, on the other hand, am Apollos, I'm for Apollos, and I am Cephas, or I am of Christ. The ultimate one-upmanship in Corinth was where a lot of people label themselves as followers of this or that apostle or leader. There was a special elite group that said, oh, well, none of their own. I'm of Christ. Yes, I'm far superior. We, of course, don't have any of that in the church in our own age. So hopefully that clears up men and debt. You will get used to it, but it helps to understand what they're doing there. Comments on the word "de," often left untranslated in English. Some of these words are used excessively. I'm just trying to see anything else that you need to know. Yeah, it's simple enough, straightforward. So that takes us. Let's just work. Top of page 107. Debt is a weak but it conjures up all sorts of images. Debt is a weak but Allah is a strong but and can occur first in a sentence. So if you see the word Allah, you always translate it because it's but. And it's, Paul uses Allah quite a lot. But, people think this and this and this, or this and this and this happened, but God, and so on. I'm told that the great preacher Martin Lloyd-Jones preached 3 sermons on a but, an Allah but somewhere in Romans, but God, and he preached 3 different sermons consecutively on the word Allah. It is the strong word for but. I think it is helpful that sentence from Mark 6:37 to 38. It's a good example of a weak but. You simply wouldn't translate it chada legai autois possus, how many artus loaves, how do you have, semicolon, question mark. You wouldn't translate but and. You might translate it and, I suppose. He says to me, simply leave it out, and often you do that with de. There's a few things about kai, or can be used as emphasis also, or even. This is very complicated, really. Understand that it means and usually means and, but sometimes it doesn't make sense as an and, so you look for something else. So Mark 2:28, kurios est in huios to anthropou, kai to sabbatu, the Lord is the Son is Lord. The Son of Man, is the Lord. Though I'm not reading the translation, I'm trying to be honest and translate it. The Son of Man is Lord, not and of the Sabbath, because that doesn't make sense. So you're looking for one of these stronger, emphatic words. The Son of Man is Lord, even also of the Sabbath. You've got the idea. I'm sure you're intelligent people. Practice 9.4. Vocab for, I'm not going to do the practice. I may do the, as I said, I may do the stuff at the end of the chapter at some point. But I also expect you lot to do some work too. 16 pronouns, vocab. We'll go to the vocab. Vocab for chapter 9, 16 pronouns of personal adjectives. Covered most of these already. Kago is worth, and I. The Germans do this, don't they? With their articles, they put pronouns to articles together. I think they do anyway. I'm trying to think whether there's anything here that's really important. I think we had an example of posos, how great or how much. Really, you've just got single words of personal pronouns there. 12 conjunctions. Oh, gosh. Ara, them, so, Duff says so leave it at that for now. Gar is very common. You'll see it's got 1,041 uses because for ge, indeed, well, don't confuse it with gay, with an eta, which is earth. 2,792 uses, it's redundant in most of them, or a great many of them. Dio, therefore, or dioti, because those are less common. IT. To be honest, some of these I've forgotten, so I've just been really honest about you, with you about that. You've got men and dare. Un is a common, therefore, word. It's worth remembering. It's worth learning that. Worth learning un, as well as men and dare and how they are used. There's some news and nouns for you. Arnion is lamb. We've had probaton, sheep. Arnion tends to mean lamb, baby sheep. Dendron, tree, rhododendron, dendrology is counting rings in trees, I'm told. Mysterion, that's easy. Think Captain Scarlet and the Mysterions or whatever they were. Mysterion sounds like mystery, it is. Poterion, cup. There's those three neuter nouns, probaton, prosopon, and poterion, that are worth remembering. Probaton is sheep. That's the one that doesn't, you can't really relate to anything. Prosopon sounds like put soap on. So face, you put soap on your face, prosopon. And poterion sounds like, well, pot, so pot, cup. That'll help you remember it. Yeah, some word helps there that deal with some of that. Exercises, section A, section B, and is there a decent translation? Section C, nice bit of Matthew 16. So Mike, we'll come back to that. But that's a run through of Duff chapter 9 for you. And I'm hoping, certainly in terms of my Greek group, that you will find that useful, and anybody else who's watching for that. I'm sure there are some authentic Greek scholars who at this point are holding their heads in their hands and saying there is no hope for this man. Well, you may well be right, but what I'm really trying to do is make the New Testament accessible for people who don't have endless time to learn verb forms and declensions. So that's all for me, and thank you for listening. That's over half an hour, and I'm starting to get hungry. It's getting on for dinner time, and thanks for watching and listening from a beautifully bright and what has been a very sunny North Northumberland, just up next to the Scottish border in England. Thank you for watching. I will see you again as and when I get round to the chapter 9 exercises. Look after yourself. Stay safe. Difficult times for so many of us. Keep yourself safe. Bye.